What's going on, everyone? Real Red Politics, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Before I get into today's video, if you guys could take a second and leave a like, that would mean a lot. And also, if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, I ask that you do take a second and hit that subscribe button, and that you hit the notification bell so you know when a new video is uploaded on my channel. So, if you could take a second and please consider subscribing, doing all of that, I would really appreciate it. Today we're going to continue the What Are My Thoughts series. This is a series for those of you that maybe haven't watched the first few episodes where I discuss political topics, and then I kind of give my opinion on them after going over them. And the topic that I have been doing these videos on lately are the presidents of the United States. I'm going researching each president in order, and I am kind of like researching like what they did. Like, I'm more focused on what they did as a president and kind of what their political beliefs were, while they were, president. And then I kind of give my overall opinion on them. So I did the first 3 episodes. I did George Washington, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson. And now we are going to talk about James Madison, the 4th president of the United States, who is often referred to as the father of the Constitution. So while I was researching James Madison, like the 3 presidents before him, he was a founding father. But something that's interesting that the other 3 didn't have, that the other 3 opposed, that he supported, was a strong central government. But what's interesting is when he drafted the article, or when he helped draft the Articles of Confederation, the Constitution, and the Virginia Plan, he often, in his writings, supported more individual liberty, and that the federal government shouldn't have as much power. So though he believed that it was better for government to be better to have a stronger central government, in the Constitution, and with his, with him wanting to protect individual liberties, he advocated against having a strong central government, which is interesting. And another thing is he also wanted a national bank, which kind of goes along with the whole central government idea, but obviously that went nowhere. And while he wanted to have a strong central government, he also noted that the federal government needed to have strict limitations on the kind of power that they were able to use, and how they were, to use it. And I guess before I get further, if you guys are interested in where I researched my information, I put all the links down in the comment section, or in the description below. So if there's something I missed, or there's something you want to research more on these topics, I do leave my references in the description below. I don't hide them, so you're welcome to go ahead and take a look at those references. Anyhow, so another thing with James Madison, excuse me, that was different from like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, is George Washington advocated against a party system because it caused division, and party systems are known to cause division, whereas James Madison believed that in politics there had to be that politics was only partisan. He didn't he believed in having political parties because he believed that politics was partisan, which is interesting because James Madison didn't exactly advocate for a party system, but he believed it was inevitable, whereas George Washington advocated against a party system. And if you take a look at today's government and how it's structured, James Madison, one of the reasons he's noted as being the father of the Constitution is because he noticed and tried to work around all the flaws that the Articles of Confederation had, which, if you're not familiar with the Articles of Confederation, it was a set of documents, or a document, document that was supposed to kind of make up the United States government before we had the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And so the Articles of Confederation were drafted. They had a lot of weak points, and the government was struggling. As a result, the country was struggling because it wasn't a strong piece of legislation. It wasn't a strong piece of America's government. It's still a piece of history. It's still interesting to look at and to kind of research. But with these flaws in mind, James Madison drafted what's known as, he helped draft the Constitution and helped bring up the individual liberties that each American citizen should have in what we know today as the Bill of Rights. When he became president, so at the time, Great Britain was, for a lack of a better word, harassing United States ships and like cargo and all that kind of stuff. And James Madison was basically like, okay, you guys need to stop. And Great Britain pretty much said no. So what happened was, whereas Thomas Jefferson was, he was anti-war, so to speak, James Madison advocated for the U.S. to go to war with Great Britain. And so that's what we know today is the War of 1812. I think it lasted about 4 or 5 years. About 4 or 5 years, yeah. I could be wrong, but I think those are the dates. After 4 or 5 years, they finally came to a peace treaty, and the War of what we know today, the War of 1812, ended. And if you take a look at the government today in the United States and the way it's structured, back when the Constitution was being drafted and, they were coming up with all the individual pieces, there was a lot of debate on how the government should be structured. That every state should get one vote, or, or the population should, or that you should get 2 votes for, like, double the like 2 votes for a state, or however, whatever the debates were. I don't remember exactly. But essentially, that's where James Madison came up with the idea of the House of Representatives in the United States Senate. The representatives have delegates based on the population of a state, whereas the United States Senate, each state gets a vote. Or I get 2 senators, so that 2 votes a state, something along those lines. My point being is, the way that government structured today, James Madison had a very large role in playing, and he also tried to make it so one state, and make sure that there was balance of power in between the legislative branch and the executive branch and all that kind of stuff. And he, like Jefferson, he advocated for religious freedom. He was a very big advocate for religious freedom. We're not just talking about some guy that, every now and then would say, yeah, we need religious freedom. No, he was very, it was one of his biggest talking points when it came to individual liberties, that him and Jefferson, agreed with. And they're, 2 of the biggest reasons as to why we have religious freedom in the Constitution today. And kind of taking all of that into account, this kind of goes to show is, even though he believes one thing is better, he did what he thought was best for the country. For example, like I said, he supported a strong central government because, he thought that's what was, he thought in his mind would be best. But in terms of like the actual country, I think he realized that individual liberty, and there needs to be a balanced power, that there can't be a strong central government because that would cause problems. That kind of stuff. And I guess going back in a reference of what the House of Representatives, United States Senate looks like now, at the time, it was called the Virginia Plan. I think he was born in Virginia, he went to Princeton, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so it was known as the Virginia Plan. And that helped establish the United States House of Representatives and United States Senate, and to kind of help with all the debate going on, because I think at the time it was just taking forever to figure out how to, because they needed a new constitution, so to speak. Even though it wasn't referred to as the Constitution of the Articles of Confederation, they needed something better, something stronger, something that was more structured. And I think James Madison was getting tired of the debates, so he's like, I'm gonna write this up, take a look at it, and that that basically the Virginia Plan was adopted, put into effect. I'm sure there were some minor tweaks here and there, but the that was put into effect, and that's kind of how we see United States representative in the United States Senate today. So, other than that, during his presidency, what did he do? I mean, I think it was more of what he did outside of his presidency. And like I know I said, I try and talk about what they accomplished during their, presidency. I mean, to be fair, he did lead the United States to the War of 1812. And, he... well, the other thing, I mean, this was while he was Secretary of State under Thomas Jefferson, but he did help expand the United States with the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled, if not more than doubled, the United States. So he was a very big advocate in westward expansion. And so kind of taking all that into account, do I think he's as good as George Washington or Thomas Jefferson or even John? I mean, him and John Adams I'd probably put at the same level, but I would put George Washington probably at the highest tier possible. Thomas Jefferson's up there, especially with his role in the Declaration of Independence and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, he was weak in international trade and stuff when it came to trading and stuff with other countries. So I mean, he was a little weak in that aspect. So I don't know that I'd put him in the same tier as George Washington. But with James Madison, I'd probably put him on the same tier as John Adams. He wasn't the best president we've ever had, but he's definitely not the worst. Did he do a lot for the country? He was kind of just there. I wouldn't say, there were any, super major accomplishments, but he didn't exactly hurt the country really in any way. Like I said, he helped lead us to the War of 1812, which was, which was, at the time, was very big for the United States. He was better on trade than Thomas Jefferson was, but Thomas Jefferson did have the embargo of 1808 or something along those lines, and from what I've read, was a disaster. Even though James Madison supported a strong central government in his legislation, it was advocating more for smaller government. So he helped structure what we know as the United States government today. And this was more when he was outside of his presidency. Like I said, while he was actually in the White House, he was just kind of there. So, overall, what are my opinions? I mean, he was fine as president. He was part of the Democrat-Republican Party. He was fine as president. He wasn't bad. He wasn't amazing like George Washington was. But he led America through a time they needed to get through, and ultimately he, after his second term, he left in peace, and he lived a pretty quiet life from what I understand. So overall, that's kind of what I have on James Madison today. I wouldn't rank him I wouldn't rank him at the top, but I wouldn't rank him in the bottom. Probably in between, kind of in the middle, maybe a little above the middle, like a tier above the middle. And like I said, after I research all the presidents and I make all the videos on them, I'm going to make a tier list. And then we're going to kind of rank him based on how well they perform as president, kind of overall what I think about him. So, anyways, that's the fourth video in the What Are My Thoughts series. I am enjoying this series because it's allowing me to, research information I probably wouldn't have researched otherwise. I took an AP U.S. Government and Politics class, which taught me some of this stuff. But I think to really go in deeper and to kind of provide content for you guys and to really kind of give a more in-depth opinion on what I think about each individual president. And I think kind of not only helps you guys understand where I stand, where I sit in terms of politics, but you guys might learn something. I mean, this isn't an educational channel by any means. It is a political talking channel, but I still think this is an interesting topic, and I know that at least when I was in school, United States presidents weren't really talked about a whole lot. I mean, you had your basics, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. You didn't really, John Adams wasn't really talked about much. James Madison, maybe a little bit here and there, that kind of stuff. It wasn't, super in-depth anything. But overall, that's what I have for you guys today. So if you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you guys are aware of a new video when it does get uploaded to my channel. And if you guys have any ideas for videos, leave them in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for more political content coming your guys' way.